let's come together right now. Oh yeah, in sweet harmony, let's come together right now. Oh yeah, time is running out.
But anyway, thank you everybody for joining for the Ecological City Art and Climate Solutions Action Project, our panel and planning meeting. So tonight we're going to hear from some of the key representatives of the issues that we cover in this project. So that includes everything from the community gardens and climate solutions to other inspiring neighborhood sustainability solutions on the Lower East Side, to what is happening on the waterfront with the East Side Coastal Resiliency Project and other coastal and river related climate solutions. So we'll be hearing about those various issues in the presentations, and then we'll be hearing from our artist in residence as well, showing inspiring visual artwork and how people can get involved. We have different partners who are also attending this meeting, so this will give you a good overview of what the subject matter is all about and how we take these concepts and apply them through the arts, through visual art, performance, dance, theater, music, poetry, and how it all comes together in the pageant on May 13th. So yeah, Hannah, if you want to introduce our first speaker.
Yeah, absolutely. Hi, everyone. It's great to see some familiar faces. For those of you I do not know yet, I was coordinating the Ecological City project when we first started the pandemic. So helped Felicia and the group navigate through that during 2020 and the following year. So I'm glad to be back to facilitate here. We have a number of people speaking today, so we'll just go ahead and get started for the sake of time. First, we're going to be hearing from the founder of Green Map, Wendy Brower. So Wendy, take it away.
Great. So as Hannah said, I'm the director of Green Map, and I'm going to introduce a Green Map to you that you can contribute to at the end of this 3 to 5 minute talk. So next slide. I've been living and working here on the Lower East Side for decades, and one of the favorite maps I've made of the neighborhood was called Lower East Ride, and it was made following Sandy to connect water and everyday climate actions we can take. So it was all about bicycling as the bike share program hit the streets. And given our neighborhood, we made it in Chinese, Spanish, and English. And this map's actually been reprinted and requested many times. So hopefully it's helped people without a smartphone use that bike system as well as everybody else to get around better by bike. We have a lot of good resources. Next slide. The last one had the high water mark and sorry, go back one. Good. There we go. You see the high water mark and the original shoreline. Let's see the next slide and what that means now in East River Park. Well, today it's supposedly 42% open. I don't know who's measuring that. And I encourage you to use that open part above Houston Street. There's stewardship going on. There's all kinds of wildlife in the park that's, I'd say, really struggling, having lost so much of its habitat there. And all of us need to be a voice for positive change around this reality in our backyard. Work's going to be continuing. It's now been estimated by the comptroller till 2027. So that's a long time to be without our complete park. Next slide. The last time I spoke here, this is what the park was looking like in the part where they were working on. And it was very concerning because we knew what was underneath. All the hazardous materials have been mapped. So this is kind of scary to see. Next slide. We'll show you what it looks like today. So it has a very industrial feeling. It's major work with increased sewerage going in, that's the parallel conveyance, dewatering, all sorts of activities going on. And we haven't even started the process of bringing in the fill. I think Allie's going to be talking more about East River Park, so I won't spend too long on it. Next slide. But to me and a lot of other people in the community, the smartest idea would have been to deck the FDR. And there is going to be, I hope, real discussion about this in the coming year. As a member of the Community Advisory Group for the East Side Coastal Resilience, they've told us that there's an RFP out to do some kind of process around greening. Let's hope we get something that really looks at all our problems holistically. Next slide. I co-created East River, LES Breathe, a part of East River Park. And you can see the action, you can see the URL up there where you can check the sensors anytime, or you can go right to the purple air map. We did this because there's no real-time recording of and public access to the data about what's in our air now. So to me, this is something that impacts everybody in the community and we should all be considering. So that's part of the reason LES Breathe continues its work. Next slide. Last summer, we took kids out into the park with heat sensors and air quality. And it's really a wake-up call for all of us. Cleaner air at home is the bottom line. How do we get there? And I was really glad that the young people worked on some things around that. Next slide. Also last summer, we went out on the hottest day of the year and measured the temperature in the park. And it was really stark to see the difference between the deforested areas and the areas where there was greening. Quite a big difference. Next slide. And one of the scenes I saw just a couple of weeks ago that really was uplifting was this group of high school students who were cleaning and taking care of all the tree beds around the block of their school. So these are East Side Community High students. Who's helping them get started? Well, the neighborhood team from the block where my office is on 3rd Street said, let's span out. All of us can be tree stewards. And to me, this is one of the most important things we can do here in New York City. Next slide. This is a little off to the side, but I also want to point out Morris, that's the Museum of Reclaimed Urban Spaces, which recently had its 10th anniversary party. If you've ever wondered how things got started, how did they grow, where are they possibly heading, Morris is a great place to check out. It's on Avenue C between 9th and 10th. And I also want to say our community gardens make a huge difference in our quality of life in this community. Make them part of your life as well. By the way, you can join stewardship through the Lower East Side Ecology Center. You can pitch in by filling a fridge, helping keep free fridges going. And you can also take part in temporary events like Little Amal, who came to town and really brought the story of refugees to life for so many communities here. The last slide, image, there's JK taking care of the tree beds. And I want to say that JK and I co-created a little event this year for the Harvest Arts Fest that Lungs creates. And you can see the link right there where we could put together all the resources around trees, street trees, urban trees, and really stewardship to me seems like the most important thing. The bottom 2 images are, one is from Siempre Verde, which is the garden I belong to. And we had just such a very nice and higgy day. The gardens are cozy. They help you connect and with nature, with people, with big ideas. And I definitely want to say thank you to the Aztec dancers who come every year to Campos Garden to remember Day of the Dead. It's a really important moment in the community for all of us. Next slide. And oh, if you just move this over just a little bit to the side, if you can, it's a little cut off here, but you can see it's a bit.ly, a Tree Love NYC. And that's where you can go, and you can just point your cell phone right to that QR code if you like, and you can add a tree you love to this map. Why are we doing this? Because even though there's so many, so many all maps available, including the city zone map, this is a place where you can record what you value about the trees, and this will tell us much more. So I'm going to stop there. Just encourage you to plug in there. You're welcome to use our platform. It's free to most users. I put up my email if you have some questions. I'm Wendy, and I'm going to turn it back over to the next speaker. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Wendy. It's hearing an echo here, so I just want to ask again, if you are not speaking, to mute your mic. I think I've got it. Okay, we've got it handled. Cool. All right, so thank you so much. That's awesome to see. And we love hearing about those new resources, well, new to some of us. Next, we're going to be hearing from who we were just speaking about, their Harvest Festival, the Los Aida United Neighborhood Gardens, Lungs Association, and speaking about La Plaza Cultural Garden.
Great, thank you. So my name is Noreen Kelly. I'm a naturopathic doctor in the East Village and also the deputy director of La Plaza Cultural Community Garden. A little bit about the history of the garden. We were started in 1976 by a local organization called Charas, which is a group of neighborhood people who got together, who wanted some green space and a playground space for their children to sort of run free. So they picked up the rubble brick by brick and carted it off and planted fruit trees and vegetables, and even Buckminster Fuller was involved. He had some geodesic domes that he put up in the garden. It was a real community effort, a real example of resistance and resilience that we're very proud of our history there. We're also, I don't mean to brag, but I'm going to, a model of sustainability in the neighborhood and possibly the entire city, because we've implemented a bunch of different programs to promote sustainability in the gardens, such as a very comprehensive composting process. We have bioswale, which provides, which purifies rainwater that comes through the garden. So the bioswale takes the rainwater and filters it through the soil, the very deep soil, and so it goes out into the East River, and it's a pure form of water than, you know, just acid rain or whatever other detritus is in the rainwater. We have bees, so we have a way for the garden to pollinate itself, and also the local bees make honey, which we sell. It's a linden flavored honey, and we've been able to sort of like come full circle with, you know, making a little bit of money, fundraising a little bit off of some of the plants and animals that we have in the garden. The bees are one of them. We also have one of the largest and most diverse medicinal gardens in the entire city, which has over 30 species from all over the world, from Asia to Northern Europe to North America to South America. And I teach a class there where I talk about the folklore and traditions behind each of the herbs and also some of the current science. So if people are interested in going to that class, it's going to be going through November at least. So you can contact me individually about that. Our most recent project is a solar pavilion, which we've been trying to get the final funding for a long time. So the solar pavilion will enable us to provide free off-grid energy for the neighborhood. It's a completely sustainably built, down to even like the shellac that we put on it to seal the wood. It will completely biodegrade, and the solar panels will as well. I believe they're a special kind of solar panel that are clear. So we'll be able to use the light that's filtered through the solar panels to light the pavilion. We're going to use it as a workspace and a teaching space so that, people who are teaching classes need something where there's a little bit of coverage, can, come in and, feel free to have a workshop or whatever. And the last thing.
Oh, your sound is off. Your sound is off.
Okay, I'm trying to unmute.
Yeah.
You're back. Thank you.
Okay, great. I'm back. Okay, awesome. So the last thing I'll talk about, because I want to keep it brief, is Ross's implementation of the hugel beds, which line the perimeter of the garden. And these are raised beds. So after Sandy happened in 2012, we had to figure out a way, because the soil was so polluted with heavy metal toxicity, we had to figure out a way to sort of like, not use that soil. And Ross came up with the idea of the hugel bed, which I'm not sure if everybody knows what a hugel bed is, but it's just like laying logs down and then throwing plants on top of it, basically. So the wood on the bottom, the logs on the bottom of the hugel bed act as sponges so that the water can get captured into the logs. And then when you throw plants and earth on top of it, it's like its own raised bed, so that the logs, you don't have to use as much water because the logs act as sponges. Efficient way to, not have to use the hoses as much or anything like that. And also Ross has planted native plants in all of these hugel beds. So plants that are in their native environment. I think that's all I wanted to say in a nutshell about the garden.
Awesome.
And I guess I'll turn it over to the next speaker if there are no questions.
Thanks, Noreen. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Yeah, we
You're
love
very
hearing
welcome.
about we love hearing about that garden. I know those of us in the neighborhood and not, that garden means a lot to us. And we love hearing about these local sustainable solutions. So thank you so much for sharing about that. The biospace and all those things are what we reflect in the art brought by our artists in residence. So next, as someone mentioned, we're going to be hearing from Allie Ryan, who's going to speak about the East Side Coastal Resiliency project and just give some general East River Park updates. So I'll go ahead and pass it over to Allie.
Thank you, Dana.
Sure.
So if you could bring up my slideshow. Okay, thank you. Okay, so I'm gonna give an update on the ESCR and more about fall. Autumn has come to East River Park, and almost in spite of the construction and deconstruction. Okay, next slide. So recently, the Office of the Comptroller released a report about the city's efforts to implement resiliency over the past 10 years since Hurricane Sandy. And naturally, the ESCR was included. And so what I want to share is that the ESCR overall budget has grown to 1.9 billion. And as Wendy mentioned, the new project completion date is 2027. Next slide. So what I want to share is that East River Park, north of Houston, is mostly open. And it's still a wonderful time to exercise and admire the changing of the leaves, as well as the ESCR student artwork is on view near it's around the track and field area. And it's important to note that the greenway is closed off for Con Ed work, whereas south of Houston Street, East River Park, the demolition is continuing. The esplanade in this picture is being removed, and And if you'll go to the next slide, you can see this is in Corlier's, or this major slide is Corlier's Hook, where they actually no. Sorry, I'm trying to see. Anyway, this is this is in East River Park. So you can see that like there's dewatering happening, which is basically draining of water coming up from the park. And that's due to deep evacuation sewer work. And nevertheless, as you can see, fall persists in this area. The few trees left are changing colors, and there are some beautiful plants in bloom. So next slide. And accessing East River Park is via the this part of the park is via Corlier's Hook Ferry Access Bridge. And if you'll go to the next slide, you can sit on the Esplanade and visit the Passive Lawn, as well as next slide. You can still you can take a ferry ride, and people are still fishing, which is wonderful. So if you'll go to the next slide. So now the big news is Pier 42 has opened to the public. It just opened like a couple weeks ago. It can be accessed at 2 entrances. The first is from the Corlier's Hook Ferry Access Bridge, and the second is from Montgomery Street. It is basically AstroTurf and cement, featuring picnic tables, a soccer field, 4 tennis courts, and an outdoor gym. When I think if you'll go to the next slide, or maybe that's it. So what I want to share with my final slide is that oversight relies on us. If you see something or you have a question, please contact CB3, which is Community Board 3, file a 311 complaint, and also reach out to the ESCR Community Construction Liaisons. So it's really, as much as the community advocated for oversight the past couple of years, unfortunately, we're not getting it. But what that means that it relies on us. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Ali, for sharing those updates. I know we all love the East River Park. So yeah, we have to continue to work together to hold them accountable to the changes we thought we'd see. Next, we're going to be hearing from, I believe, Dr. Paul Mankiewicz, speaking on behalf of the Gaia Institute, and is going to talk again about some climate and coastal resiliency in the area. So let's see, where's Paul? Here we are.
Coastal resilience, okay. All right. I am relatively brief. Lucy asked me to talk about the coast, and that's a critical piece, because even though there's a plan for the park, there's literally nothing on the coast, and every project in the city should be held accountable, exactly described in the last presentation, but for the only metric we have for climate change, that's carbon. And every time you see ecology, you see those trees, they're capturing carbon, about 1 kilogram per square meter. And the marsh in the bottom is doing 2 or 3 or even 4. So these 3 points are worth noting, because there's metabolic criteria for coastal resilience. Basically, you don't think about it, but all the stuff they're moving around is done every day in the city, and there's 19,500 tons of it. And just to put that in perspective, Darwin was famous for, among other things, showing how the reefs protected the islands in the South Pacific. Well, they used to do that here. And those tons of clean brick, concrete, and glass is enough to make a reef 10 feet high, 10 feet wide, and 1 mile long. In other words, it could have been used to not only create an aquifer underneath East River Park, but also a reef around the edge. So literally would have behaved like it was when the Lenape were here. And that's the way we might go forward for carbon reversal, if that middle block diagram is basically showing how reefs and marshes work with carbon. So even though everything that captures carbon also respires it, reefs are different because they store something like a ton under every 2.5 acres every year. In other words, they're behaving literally like a storage basin where the carbon disappears. And I was hoping to have a fish that I could hold for you folks, but just picture this, okay? That beautiful striped bass, it's throughout, it's the emblem of the river. Every last one of them is about 44% salt marsh. So the city can no longer make an improvement to water quality by capturing combined sewer. It needs to do something like the marsh. Next slide shows where we are. So you see that basically the city did quite a bit by getting all the runoff that was going into the combined sewers out of something like 100-ish billion gallons a year. And it's down now to 20-ish, maybe a little less. And spent money, but a great deal happened. The money spent from here on in is going to make no difference. It's going to be billions of dollars, basically, for billions of gallons. So not really going to contribute. But the next slide shows you something that's really the power. And DEP is working on this right now. So write to the state, tell them you want DEP's contracts to be able to use rib mussels pictured here to be able to filter Jamaica Bay, but also in your neighborhood, because those every square foot of that mussel packed habitat you see filters 2,000 gallons of water a day. In context, that means 14 acres, 15 acres of salt marsh would filter all of the 1.23 billion gallons of wastewater we discharge every day. But what I need to put that in context, to think back to that striped bass, either the water becomes super saturated with nitrate, or if you feed all the particulates, all the bacteria, which these particular mussels love, that gets turned into blackfish, into striped bass, basically into the biota, into the life of the estuary. That's a step we're not doing. So it used to be that this whole place was surrounded by, especially the Lower East Side, but other parts of the city as well, Jamaica Bay. It was 70 square miles, 45,000 acres of salt marsh. And that needs to be brought back, and we need to encourage. So just for the Lower East Side, I have some designs for it. I sent last year. We need to see there too marsh built around the edge of the esplanade, underneath, maybe using the foundation for the elevated FDR as a way to build salt marsh. I'll be talking about more about this. It's on the Urban Soils Institute has got a symposium coming up, and Dan Walsh and I are talking about exactly all of this. So the metabolism of the city and the waste stream into ecology. The next slide shows basically Rikers Island is under discussion now for what they're going to do there. If you simply did this and built marshes around it 3.5 miles, whatever the length of Rikers Island is, the next slide shows you would start to change the nitrogen budget, because as you had a few feet more of marsh, 20, 50 feet of marsh, you're filtering billions, millions, tens of hundreds of millions to billions of gallons of water. And it's just because this is what marsh does. And that's the way it lives. The next slide shows some graphics of some of this. Oh no, I guess they're not, I didn't come in, but this is what it would look like. Basically, and this used to be, this is City Island. Every estuary edge in the city just about was covered with those marshes, marsh grasses. Those are more productive than tropical rainforests, temperate rainforests. And with the mussels, they literally deposit the carbon that used to be the pathogens and then become literally food for the blackfish and the striped bass. And the same for the seaweeds. And you have a bunch of these beautiful creatures. Also, it should be, I think it's simply taking away human freedom to not let kids get down to this kind of habitat. We have to get their hands in it, and to have everyone separate from life is a kind of insanity. The people who lived here before us did not live that way, and we would live better if we took a look back to basically that kind of engagement. Next slide. So it's not hard you simply need to break the wave energy, the currents coming off the East River and the rest of it with some kind of a structure. Again, we have 19,500 tons of that structure every single day to create wave breaks and reef type structures. And the state needs to consider the carbon cost and carbon value, literally of the waste stream, because all metabolism is made from the same thing. You basically break something down and build something up. And that's the law of how life makes herself. Next slide. So all the wastewater treatment plants are surrounded by mud flats. Those could be marshes. And just a simple wave break barrier that's also for oysters and mussel beds could also create every acre of marsh is the equivalent of about one of the wastewater treatment plants. So instead of having the water go into the sound here, and it makes the western sound and gives it an F rating because the nitrogen is so high, because there's no sink. It's clean. You could have pure nitrate coming out of the wastewater treatment plants, and it would still be a pollutant because that would support a pea soup algal bloom during the hot, warm days and fish kills. But if the plankton was basically part of the feedstock of oysters, of clams, of rib mussels, it would be different. The next slide. Shows again the same kind of this dynamic is repeatable everywhere around from the Lower East Side to the Bronx to Jamaica Bay and Brooklyn. Next slide. And it doesn't, from this distance, it looks kind of like a bunch of grass, but just think there's 4 great carbon capture powers on the planet. Temperate and tropical rainforests are kind of one unit. And then the salt marshes and mangroves are another. Another one that you could get back here, used to be in great numbers, was the seagrasses, eelgrass. But these natural systems are what captures the carbon out of the air. And just one other way to look at this, we spend, of the 11,000 megawatts, we spend 3,000 of those every summer to basically cool the city. And a green roof I have on behind me, but also in on Linda Tool and on the Viborough, saves 40% of air conditioning. Every megawatt you produce discharges a half a ton of CO2 per day. Every marsh like the one in front of you captures something like 10, between 2 and 3 kilograms per square meter per year. So literally tons to tens of tons per acre per year. Next slide. And DEP is trying to do something like this underwater in Jamaica Bay with rib mussels. And the state has been slow. The rib mussels would simply take the nutrients out of the water and build them into the fishery. Next slide. And this is another way to visualize it. This is Christo's Beautiful Madness. He made an artwork out of these islands. And just to show you something, there's something like 200 feet of pink fabric, but a tenth of that, basically a 20-foot marsh, would be filtering the water out to something like 500 feet to a depth of 10 feet every single day. So we don't visualize that power, but that's how life works. The next slide. And there they are, by the Pelham Bay landfill that used to be in the leachate bed. But those creatures are, in simple terms, a force. I'll stop here.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing, Paul. I think everybody in this room is pro marsh. Okay, great. So first, then we'll go over to, also related to the bioarts, we're gonna hear from Kathy Kretzberg. It's also a local artist who has been working with our bioarts materials.
All right, so this, I changed my presentation a little bit because last year we really advanced quite a bit in some of the bio material costumes. And so I wanted to expand on what we did from last year. I wanted to go ahead and next year make not just one costume, but think of the costume I made for myself as sort of a prototype for the next set of workshops. So in this picture, I'm standing, I haven't been belly dancing much, to be honest, but in this picture, I'm wearing a costume that is made out of bioarts materials. And on the right are some examples of headdresses that we started making last year. Okay, you can go to the next slide. So new additions to the prototype are we really developed the mycelium cast or shapes and forms that we could create. So I think this year we're going to go ahead and make actual forms for the mycelium, and mycelium grows, it's very sensitive to contamination, but it worked really well after the shapes were formed in my closet, basically. It needs to grow in the dark for a week or two, and then using egg tempera that's mixed with spices. And then also we are creating kombucha leather costumes. I still have some panels of kombucha leather from last year that we can work with to make costumes. And also just using all of the COVID safety packaging, the waste. It's sort of this foil packaging that I've been saving to create sort of sparkles, you know, with it on these different costumes. Okay, you can go ahead and move forward. This is the, there's a video that shows how to create these, how to create the mycelium and hemp substrate material. It's a sculptural material, the one, and this is what we grow in the forms, in these cardboard forms. And last year I discovered that if you put an armature wire in the center, the mycelium will grow around it, and then you can really create something that can hold on to something else. Okay, you can go ahead and move forward. And this is what the mycelium looks like after it's grown out of the form, and I'm peeling the form off in the right-hand side. And then in the center of this picture, you can see how the armature wires is sort of grown into the mycelium. And on the left are the actual, accessories, a headband and also some armbands that are made. That's mycelium sewn right onto different material, you know, fabric with a bead on top, a glass bead. Okay, you can go forward. So after the mycelium is grown, this is the egg tempera, because I found that dyeing this material doesn't work. It's totally, it kind of repels all of the dye. So we mixed egg tempera, which is an egg yolk. It's a very old traditional form of painting, like from the you know, the Renaissance and the medieval period. It's like really old technique where you use egg yolk and you mix in this case, we mixed turmeric and what is it? We mixed turmeric, cocoa powder, and smoked paprika. Those are the three colors that we made. Hopefully we can expand on that a little bit more, but these are the three colors we were able to successfully paint onto the surface of the mycelium. Okay. And then in a separate, completely separate project for the kombucha leather, we fermented and grew the SCOBY in these big tubs. And then that's number one. It takes has to be nice and warm, and it has to be fed with tea and sugar and water. Then you pull it out, and it feels like a squid or some kind of sea creature. And then you stretch it out onto a board and let it dry. And then number 3, that's what the leather actually looks like. Okay, you can go to the next slide. And then I thought, oh, well, I found that you couldn't really dye it with beet juice. I thought maybe that would work. But actually what we did was we just covered, turmeric is so great. You know, this is turmeric that we covered the kombucha leather with, and then you can see in the center, I'm wearing the turmeric covered kombucha leather in the middle there, and then my belly dancing skirt is right over it. So hopefully we can do more of these and not just one. It takes a bit of time to grow, but I think we can get some more of it going. Okay, next. And then we used vines. These are Virginia creeper vines, and we twisted them all together, made these crowns. And we can maybe add to these, or maybe develop these a little bit more this year. Okay, go on. You can move to the next one. We did not use kelp last year. This is from a couple of years ago. I made like a bodice, a vest or bodice there, and I'm wearing the kelp, but it's a little crunchy when it dries, but you can form it over a mold and then kind of sew it on, but it's a little crunchy. So if we get kelp again, we'll try some other things, but I don't think we had that last year. Okay, you can move on. And this is kind of the final sort of thing with all of the masks and the COVID test packets, the Mylar. I just saved these, and then we cut them into circles. And I found, you know, a lot of the biomaterials are not very sparkly. And if you're wearing a costume, you need a little sparkle. So we created these I don't know what you call it, like scarves or mantles that go around your neck. And we cut these different, the Mylar into circles. So we'll definitely be doing more with the Mylar. I found that to be, that was a really fun kind of last minute addition to all the other costumes. And it's related in a way, it's bio waste, I guess, or biomedical waste in a way, but it, you know, of course it's clean. So it's just the packaging for the masks and the tests.
All right, so next we're going to be hearing from one of our artists in residence, who also does a lot of work with bioremediation and regenerative solutions. So I'm going to pass it over to Dee Dee Moucher.
There. So I have a collective called the Moss Collective Masters of Succession, which is based in the idea of creating better water, air, and soil and selves to create a better place. And we start at the level of the microbe and redesign everything up from there. So this has to do with my sculpture, which I live a lifestyle of beneficial succession as I make the sculpture, and everyone's welcome to help me and discover what that is. It's not so complicated. We just try to live our lives and reap the benefits of our efforts in trying to live closer to regenerative lifestyles, which create byproducts that I can use in the sculpture. And that's coming off the idea of this Wiliki. I went to one of Eric's lectures a long time ago in 2012 or something. And this was really interesting to me, the mirror web, which shows where the humans are, which is right there in the little red dot, and how we're all interconnected. And so the most of the mush in the world is microbes and plants, but humans are right here, we're pretty small. So it's kind of fun to just know that. And we have, this is some of my other art that I do. And it just shows that a quote my friend says recently, he has a book called The New Earth. Humans have a creative force to shape reality, not through technology from the head, but by biotechnology from the heart. And I liked that. Oops. So the three sections of what I'm going to talk about is what I'm doing for Ecological City, which is the bioremediating sculpture I've been doing for several years. And then to make the sculpture and the things that go on it, we stockpile bioremediation technologies. And so that'll be number 2. And number 3 is the pageant and the procession and the lifestyle that comes together at the end, which I think is a really nice culmination of all of these pieces. And I call it Microbes to Metropolis. And so for the sculptures, we have 4 years, and the next will be the 5th year. And we'll start with the elder Gaia, which I just named Grace. She still gets a name, like she never really had a name. So, or maybe her name was Gaia. But I thought Grace was a really nice name. So she cares for people and earth and leads the way for the next generation. And then yeah. And so here she is floating. And all of what she's made with are lifestyles of the people who helped make her, which was many people, and Marta being one of them. And the byproducts of our lifestyle that added to her life. And this is the next one. The next year I did the youth, and I call it They of the Willows because it's a she, he, and they. She's a they. And this just came out of not really planning, but just what happened with the pieces that came together, the sticks that came together that revealed her to me. And with help of other people, of course. And there she is. So there she is again. It was a conversation. And this was her floating away, and she actually floated away. We got her in the water, and the mud balls fell in, and life became better. So the booms here are what actually holds the raft from going over in the waves. And we've been lucky for many years not to have so many waves. But in this particular case, the dock created a splashing and a sort of a tidal that came off the walls, and it knocked her over, hitting this pier. And then she was down for 5 minutes or so. We thought it was over, but then she popped up. She, he, they popped up. And that was really fun. So I thought that it was sort of as if gratitude was being given to the water. The next year was the lockdown, and I was at Grace Exhibition Space, and I needed to go out and live my lifestyle, which I didn't really do, to accumulate the pieces for the sculpture. But I listened to a Naomi Klein, and she was quoting Milton Friedman, who said, whatever's being laying around is what's being put to use. So I started looking around, like, what do I have laying around? And I actually had all of the pieces to make a miniature one. So this is what came out of it, was Solar Sun, who escorts his Gaia Mother Earth. And so it was a time where I thought the youth were taking hold and helping their parents or the elder people to take a break from our hard work and starting to take over and steward the next generation is stewarding and giving the mother a break. But she doesn't ever take a break because she actually is dissolved in the water and she's working on the microbes. So no taking breaks. So here it is again. And there's the Gaia on the raft. And these are that's kombucha leather, and these are microbes in the mud balls. And there's kelp, and there's mussels, there's echinacea. The next year I did the turtle and the frog. I started with a turtle and the loggerhead turtle and the ideas about that. And then I added this coqui, the tropical red-eyed tree frog, as another indicator species. And they found themselves together and looking for home, and they go off, and they also clean the water, air, and soil as a byproduct of going off and finding their refuge or refinding their home. And here's JC helping with the booms that are on the side are made with dog hair and people hair, and they float and they hold the piece up. So The next thing is my idea in general, because this is only one sculpture, and I'm hoping in the future we can do 3,333 sculptures. So if anyone wants to make this happen or has ideas on how to make it happen, please contact me and let's do more than just one. These are the thank yous. There's lots of people to thank, or actually, and to who, and hopefully we have this many people helping this year. Lifestyles of beneficial bioremediation and symbiosis, harvesting Phragmites, bladderwrack kelp, mussels, making water, bioremediating mud balls, amulets, growing mushrooms, brewing kombucha, collecting seeds, cultivating oysters or eating them, to use mycoremediation, harvesting dry milkweed to make braids and stockpiles of seeds. So many things to do. And here are the list of the, in a phase order from the year one I documented. And this is getting Phragmites. So one of the jobs is to go to the beach. It's not so hard. Let's go to the beach and collect Phragmites. And there's some community gardens that usually need to some pruning. And so that's very handy to help the community gardens and also take the waste home. Bladderwrack kelp and mussels. The bladderwrack kelp seems to grow in the mussels. And we only take the ones that release themselves. I don't pull them unless they, so I actually ask them if they want to come with me, and I only take a small bag. So hopefully that's okay. And the ferry back is really nice. And we can either bike with them or carry them on the subway. This is braiding the milkweed that I bike by it, but I'm not sure I can anymore because it's near the Lower East Side Ecology Center. But I'm sure there's more milkweed stalks around this winter, sorry. And save your scobies if you are doing any kombucha at home with your lifestyle of bioremediation and symbiosis. You might have scobies, so we could really use your scobies and your fur. If you have pets and you take them to the grooming, we could use some of your fur or your hair waste at the hair salon. If you're growing mushrooms at home, I am, so you don't have to, but you're welcome to join us. What we do is we do the Paul Stamets technique, where we put the oyster mushrooms into the hair. They like hair, they eat hair, and they also like oil. So they break down petroleum, which is really handy because the booms are on there. They actually also absorb the oil on the surface of the water, and then we can actually remediate that as well. And oysters. So we add oysters. We have this little oyster cage. Usually I have cages are hanging off the booms, and they float in the water below the booms, so they don't sink to the bottom. And if you like to make things with seeds, that's another option. And here's a lot of the seeds that could be used for headdresses, for example. So that could be helpful. Anything you have extra, like decoration. This was decoration my friend brought to add to the sculpture at the end. If you want to add decoration, that would be great. Weaving with willow, I could always use help weaving. It's just basically, in the beginning, we do the grid, which we can do, and these are ankles that I was making for the first year. I can teach you how to do that. And for the raft, we actually braid the Phragmites. It's a lot of work. See, we're braiding it, and then we tie it off with willow. It's tied off not with string, but with willow. Unless it falls apart, then we do use string. There. And so the next thing, those are the pieces of the sculpture, but then we want to stockpile biospheres, and we put these on top of the sculpture. So we have the seed balls, we have the mud balls. This was with Parsons. This is Earth School. We made the little amulets that we hand out to each garden. And that's another job. So much to do. This year I wanted to add, not that we need to add more, but every year I've wanted to make this clay paint, and maybe the dyes that we could leverage some of the dyes, or maybe make a lot of dye together and have that as well as we make some bio paint to paint the streets along the way of the procession. And then I have these hula hoop skirts that drop seeds. So we put seeds in the skirt. And so as we're walking along, we drop seeds. So there's two more ideas for this year. Not that we have to do it, but I just thought it'd be fun to put it out there. So there it is. So that's it. We start with the level of the microbes. And this year, because of the COVID, there's a lot of research on how viruses and microbes affect each other. And they do transport, they call it what do they call it? G something. Horizontal gene transfer. And that does happen between the eukaryotes and the viruses. Eukaryotes and viruses exchange information, and they both use it to their own good or bad. And that's it. So biotechnology from the heart. Let's go.
Yay.
Hey,
Yay.
sounds great.
That's it.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Dee Dee.
You're welcome. That's it. Bye.
Lovely.
Awesome. Great. So, all right, next we're going to hear, do we have Lucrecia here today? Felicia? Or will you be?
I'm going to speak about Lucrecia's in Chile.
Great. So, yeah, next we'll be hearing from one of the other long-term artists in residence, Lucrecia Novoa. As Felicia just said, she is in Chile. So Felicia's going to give her presentation for her.
Yeah. So yeah, go to the next slide. So Lucrecia has been working with our celebrations since the late 90s, and she runs the costume workshops, which take place on Saturdays in the afternoon. So we hope people will join. Every year we focus
puppet
on
workshops.
Yeah, these are the puppet workshops, working with clay and then paper mache over that. So we make these large heads that then have dresses. And we try to, every year we've been creating. So we have so many puppets right now, but, we try to develop new concepts every year that might be missing in the whole array of the story we're trying to tell about the Lower East Side and the different urban climate solutions. You can go to next. So this was one of the puppets from last year, Coastal Resiliency. You can go to the next. And then Sustainable City and Planet. So Lucrecia, there's a lot of research that's done in folders compiled with data and inspiring images. And then, the participants get to look at that and it all gets incorporated into the designs. So Lucrecia hasn't started working on the designs yet. The artists really start working now in December after this meeting, digesting all the material that we've discussed, and we try to define what are the concepts for 2023, and then we'll present those designs in February. Next. So this shows you her process. She works with a clay base. People work collaboratively in these workshops. The artists are not working isolated alone. I mean, she does work on the design, but then everybody has a hand in helping create the final piece. And then it's layered on with 3-4 layers of paper mache. Next. And then this is what it looks like when it's finished, which is pretty amazing. The work that comes together with so many different, even many of the volunteers who come, some, have shown that they're great painters or they can sew the dresses. So everybody, no matter what their skill level is, can be part of this. This was the Coastal Resiliency puppet and I guess the City Sustainable Solutions. And then, yeah, here they are in the workshop painting the dresses. So you can see there's many, different aspects of the project, from painting to more sculptural work, and then the performative aspect of actually being able to carry and wear these puppets in the pageant in May. Okay.
Awesome. Great. Thanks so much, Felicia, for sharing a bit about what Lucrecia has done in the past and what we look forward to seeing this year. So the next person we'll be hearing from, as we said, Lucrecia does the puppet workshops. The other part of the program is costume workshops. So we're going to be hearing from Johanna Roa, who will be in charge of the art and climate costume workshops this year. So I'll go ahead and unmute you here and
Oh, hello. It seems that I am the new one, so I'm excited to, join the team. So I'm a visual artist. I'm an art historian too. I'm a feminist, a visual artist and art historian. So my textile artwork in general focuses in the relationship of the body with different contexts. The natural environment, the historical and social context is important for me. I start from the idea that the objects of the human production and the relationships with nature come from the human beings' need for them, and their daily use. Then from this premise, the object on which I reflected in my work, also they imply an aesthetic dimensions, are born from folding and extending the possible relationships with human and nature things. Then for me, it's impossible to separate it. Then let's go to the next image, please. I selected 4 textile projects to talk today. This is the Mazawa dress. Mazawa is a native community of Mexico. I made the dress using some pages of art history books. My goal with this project is to point out the lack inclusion of women and other ways to thinking in traditional art history. This is important because different societies have had better solution to relate with the nature. I mean, in not overexploitation and not destructive ways. Could you go to the next image, please? Thank you. This is a detail. It has 3 parts, the blouse skirt and an apron. Okay, the next one project, let's do the next slide, please. Could you, thank you. This project is named Made of Foam. I made it during an artist residency in Mexico City with the Cultivated Foundation. I made it in crochet with no regenerative plastics. And I collected garbage. It's my own garbage that I collected for maybe 1 year, almost 1 year. And the photo was taken in the middle of the milpa. The milpa is a relevant concept because it's a pre-Hispanic garden orchard, and it's quite different from the traditional Western garden. In the milpa, there is not a monoculture, and it seems messy, but it has the order that nature allows. Okay, thanks. Let's go to the next slide, please. Thank you. The last project is named Textile Woman, and I will show you 2 different textile installations, but both are part of the same project. As you can see, the dress at the same time is my dress, is a home. It covers the walls and the floor and builds an intimate space. However, if in the project I'm talking about my family memories, especially of my mother and my grandmother, who is here behind me, I'm also interested in relationships with the social context. So for this project, I use the concept of extimacy. Extimacy is built on the intimacy, and it essentially linked to what is invisible, because what is intimacy usually remains deep. In this sense, the textile woman's home also arrives from the interior and from my personal history, but at the same time because evident in the space with the home environment and ambience. The way that I present is an acknowledgement. Go to the next image, please, of how through the history, private spaces have been used to exercise the personal autonomy, and they have been used as a space of resistance against all kinds of erasure of memories and histories. Please go to the next image. Those are details of the same installation. And one more, because in the next one I'm wearing the dress. Thank you. And the last one is, yes, one more. This is other project of the other installation of the same project, the Textile Woman. Then the personal is a space for imagination, recognition, self-learning, self-contemplation, and self-representation. And at the same time, I believe that traditionally personal spaces appears as disconnected with the economic system, and that is impossible. We are responsible from our personal and daily life of what happened in the social context. The one slide more, please. This is a view of the whole space. And finally, I want to thanks to their celebration, to the invitation to join this project, especially, congratulate Felician, because this is a relevant and necessary initiative for our present and our future. Then thank you so much.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Awesome. Thank you. Let's go back to Calorie here. Awesome. So we're so excited to see those costumes. Those are beautiful. Next, we're going to hear from Catherine Fragging, who has worked with us for numerous years, creating these art and climate collaborative paintings with community members. So I'll go ahead and unmute you here and spotlight so we can hear more.
Hello, everybody. Hang on, let me just do. And life and currents. There we go. So I have spent a lot of time in the parks around the East Village, talking to people, talking to them about how meaningful they are to them, but also focusing on the climate solutions that are going on in the parks. And I have done a series of murals and banners that have evolved over the years. These first ones were straight discussions of climate solutions, and each park was given one banner like this to that was dedicated to the park and celebrating their climate solution that they were doing. This is not going to go, huh? How do I? Okay. So here are some of those. There were quite a few of those. And then they are done after I've just talked with a lot of people. I do these black and white drawings, and then people fill them in, paint them in. And then the next year, the UN started introducing their goals. And we, in the lower left, we matched the template of what their goals were with what was going on in the East Village Gardens. And the top picture is, top left is their design. And I then put that into a mandala that both expresses all the sustainable solutions, the UN goals, and what was going on in the East Village Gardens. Then the next year, are you seeing this whole slide? I can't really tell if you are. I think you are.
Yeah.
Okay. Then the next year, we were concerned with the East Side River Park issue. And we did 6 murals that were both showing the solutions that were being applied to the park, but also still maintaining our appreciation for what was going on in the gardens, and you'll see a series here. This is, of course, the northern part of the park, showing solar panels and berms and different solutions. And then here's something that's a composite of what goes on in the Lower East Side parks. This is then the middle section of the East River Park, the Lower East Side section. The roof top solutions and other solutions like EV stations in the East Village. And then this is a proposed rejuvenation of the waterfront. And here is the way they're constructed. People just come and have at it. And then when COVID hit, we started to I had people submit separate things. And we just did freeform murals on fences with what was sent to me. There was no, and here's some of the things that people submitted, and still showing sustainable solutions. And then we put it together in a mural at one point like that. And then last year, with the demise of the East River Park, we got into memories, and people told stories of the importance of having a pet and being able to walk a pet, and having playing fields, being able to commune with nature and just feel peaceful, all different having socializing, community building. And so there are many stories and images that were sent to me expressing these things. So we did 3 large murals like that. This one is more about nature. The other was about community. This one is about sports. And then and we put them all up on the fence that's on 9th and C. And I have to say that this was the most meaningful art show I've ever had, because as people walked along the sidewalk, nobody didn't stop. Everybody stopped. How many times do you have a show in a gallery and people just kind of walk by some and see others? But everybody came, looked at them. Either they identified with something, or they had painted it, or they wanted to tell the story to their child about what the East Side looked like and what it was to build the gardens. All nationalities, all ages stopped and looked and found something in the murals, including seeing the redevelopment schemes. One child coming up and saying, "I want to live there," which I loved. And so overall, using the murals may seem predictable, but they are not, because they inspire dialogue, education, lots of community building, and expanded expression of the entire community. They have been effective and rewarding for everybody who's been involved in them. So that's what I have. I think that was under 3 minutes.
Yeah, that was awesome, Catherine. Thank you so much for sharing. I know those in the meeting here who have been involved, you've seen how breathtaking these murals can be. And it's so great for those of us that hang out in the gardens to see, maybe some people that haven't yet participated or we haven't met them, to see them drawn in by these paintings and really feel something and feel connected. So thank you for sharing. Last but certainly not least, we're going to be hearing from the founder and director of Earth Celebrations, Felicia Young, and she's going to tell a bit more about what Earth Celebrations is about and what the project looks like this year. So I'll go ahead and spotlight her, and we'll bring up her presentation.
Thanks. So some of you have been part of this before. Some of you are new artists. Some have been part of it for many years. For the partners who are there and have not been part of it, this will give you at least some of an overview of what it all is. So you can go to the next slide. So as I said, ecological city, it's bringing together the climate solutions. If you took an aerial view of what was happening on the Lower East Side, it's this incredibly inspiring, sustainable ecosystem between what is happening post Hurricane Sandy in the community gardens, absorbing floodwaters and all the green infrastructure projects. Next. So yeah, Hurricane Sandy was really the big wake-up call. So all those years we were preserving the gardens, I think we were thinking of it like we're preserving open space and community building and all the cultural activities, and green nature within the city. But after Hurricane Sandy, it became a totally different recognition of the value of the gardens in the age of climate impacts and their ability to absorb the flood water, and then all the other green infrastructure projects that were already underway that then got a federal grant with more money to enhance what was already there. So you have some gardens with rainwater harvesting ponds, others with solar microgrids. You heard about the solar pavilion at La Plaza, some installing bioswales to filter pollution runoff. Some gardens really focus on sustainable agriculture through vertical farming and growing of vegetables in their gardens. Other gardens have what are called pollinator and rain gardens. So there's just a whole beautiful ecosystem of these sustainable solutions that somebody might walk down the street and not recognize. So what the pageant is doing is bringing people into these spaces and honoring and recognizing the value of all of these solutions that are not just imagined, but actually living and thriving on the Lower East Side. And then as part of that aerial view, we go over to the waterfront. And when we started this project, that was, you can go to the next, it was before the new plan, the destructive plan that many people are opposed to. The initial plan, which was with Rebuild by Design, the community was engaged on. So when we started the pageant, we were bringing attention to what was happening and the community engagement on some of the design plans. But little did we know that fast forward, a year, the mayor would throw out the community plan and come up with a new plan that was going to raise the entire park, put in landfill, build it up 10 feet. And, you heard the presentation. So anyway, it's still to be decided, how much now maybe the community can go forward and give their ideas and input, such as putting the park deck over the FDR, which is one of the popular ideas. The other one was the rolling hillside seawall berm that I don't know has been forgotten. So you can go to the next. So the process that we initiate every year is really a full year and certainly 9 months from the design planning meetings that we have, where we present the different concepts, then the artist digests the data and information and work over the winter to develop designs that will then be presented in February. Go to the next. So it brings together the solutions between the gardens, the neighborhood, and the waterfront. We've identified 21 different sustainability sites. In the neighborhood, we have rooftop bee farms, we have the Earth School Green Roof, we celebrate community solar projects. So they're integrated into this whole ecosystem of different sites. Okay, next. So the pageant route, it is 11 miles long in its original form. It's a little shorter now that we just have one section of the East River Park open above 6th Street to 12th Street. It includes 12 different gardens, at least 3 neighborhood sites, and then 5 sites along the waterfront. So yeah, all of the workshops, all of the visual art, all of the performances that get created, whether it's music, dance, theater, or poetry, will highlight one of the sites and their climate solutions. So the procession itself that gets built over the many months involves the visual art that gets presented in the moving procession, as well as at the particular 21 different sites with brief 5-minute performances. Yeah, you can go to the next. Here are some of the designs of the various costumes in the past and Lucrezia's puppets. So you get a sense, this is some of the design work. And then the workshops will start up in March, and people are welcome. They're free. People can sign up online on Eventbrite and show up for the workshops where the artists will engage the community on those designs for both the puppets and the costumes. So you can see, the various skills, you don't have to know how to sew. The artists have been very good about engaging people. This actually is Dee Dee's, the first year bioremediation sculpture out of willows. So you can see that there. And then in April, we have additional workshops. So while we have our regular bi-weekly workshops, March through May, when we get to April, this is where we start doing the partnerships. So on this call, we have people from University Settlement, Lower East Side, Henry Street Settlement, Boys and Girls Republic, Jacob Reese Cornerstone, Lower East Side Ecology Center, Museum of Reclaimed Urban Space, and also the Chinese American Arts Council might be joining us this year. So Katie's project, the collaborative painting project, is one of the projects that really goes out and engages many of those different community groups in schools to paint the various murals and banners that we have. We've also had artists collaborate with different groups to tell the stories of climate and coastal resiliency and what was happening with the gardens. And they also collaborate with different groups to develop performance works as well. Next. Yeah, so here I'll just go through very quickly some pictures. You can see it all culminates in the pageant. All the different costumes, if you look closely, represent either different climate challenges that we face in New York, as well as the climate solutions. So every year we try to figure out what we have, what we need to create new. Here you see the bioremediation sculpture. It's actually rides on a cycle rickshaw throughout the pageant. Next. Here's actually, go back. So this is Dee Dee's bioremediation sculpture, I think from 2019. So you can see that was Lady of the Willows. Yeah, next. So this, you can see, so Katie had done these beautiful banners engaging many of the gardeners with their different climate solutions. We gave those out to all the different gardens. Many hung them on their fences. Some are being protected under sheds. Some, have, I guess, disintegrated slightly in being exposed to the elements. But anyway, that might be an idea that, we can create potentially some more banners regarding these different solutions. Next. So then along the route, we have performances. This one celebrated upcycling at El Sol Brillante, followed by gardeners performing ceremonies, offering water collected in the gardens that gets offered to the river at the end of the day. We have recycler costumes that were made many, many years ago. Some of these costumes, and we have at least 50 costumes from previous years that get worn, plus we will create at least 3 new ones this year. Great. Go to the next. These are just different solutions. Yeah, so along the route, that was the children's workshop school. Then we celebrate sustainable agriculture at Campos Garden. Go to the next. And vertical farming at Campos Garden. We celebrate renewable energy and the solar microgrids. We had girls from the Lower East Side Girls Club who presented a song. So that's the thing, is people can join in and create both visual as well as performative art. It can be professional artists as well as community groups. So really anyone who wants to be part of this can. And we just try to figure out and match people to specific sites and specific solutions. And then at La Plaza Cultural, one of the larger gardens with an amphitheater, is sort of where we tell the story of the birth of the gardens, Hurricane Sandy giving birth to the climate solutions, and the community engagement on all of these issues. So that main performance it's one of the larger performances of the day, sort of tells the overall story. And then we go to the specific gardens to highlight the different solutions. So Green Oasis has a pollinator garden. We celebrate that. In some years, we've actually had pollution pirates that have attacked the pageant at certain points, and songs for healing in the garden. And this is the Earth School with the kids made a beautiful mural, wearable garden mural, and the kids from the 6th Street Community Center youth present a performance each year. And then we move over to the waterfront. So we can just see through that so people get a sense of the route, the different performances, different stewards of the river present. The sculpture gets offered to the river and luckily floats away if everything works all right. And then we can take some of the visuals, which we've done, to City Hall planning meetings as creative testimony. We brought them to rallies, to press conferences on behalf of the East River Park. And yeah, so that gives you a sense. It's like many, many months of community creative collaboration, bringing together all of the climate solutions that exist and amplifying it through both the visual and performing arts.
Awesome, great. Thank you so much, Felicia, for rounding out the meeting there and giving everyone a bit more ideas about what this project is about and what we stand for and what we've done in the past. Now, we would like to move on to a Q&A portion of the evening. So we'll go ahead over to gallery view here for everyone. And I'd like to invite anyone, if they have a question, to raise their hand on the Zoom feature. If you're unsure of how to do that, please feel free to just type your question into the chat and I can repeat it for you and see that it gets answered by the appropriate panel presenter. Yeah.
Yeah, and I wanted, if you could scroll down to the bottom of the script, I listed some of the partners.
I'm familiar. Yep. Awesome.
Well, maybe we can call on some of the partners and see if they can. We wanted to, give them a chance to do a quick introduction, say maybe what they think.
So I'll introduce
the project, or if they don't know. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah. So I'll go ahead and just give a shout out to some people that we see here today. So we have Aileen from the Chinese American Arts Council, Alain Devage from the Henry Street Settlement, Takim Duncan from University Settlement, Yarini from the Los Aida Center, Juan Puntes from White Box. We also have a number of other artists attending this call, as well as we know a lot of members of community gardens. So if any of those parties would like to speak first, or give a bit a little intro as to what you do with the project, now's your chance. But I see Louis has his hand up. So it's, I'll pass it over here to Louis Kleinman. I'm going to unmute you so you can say your question, okay? Now, we would like to move on to a Q&A portion of the evening. All right, Louis, if you have a question, there you are.
Not a question, and I was just going to do a very short presentation about getting into the water because you guys, well, most of you know that's where my interests are. So I'll hold my point off, and so people can ask questions about this presentation, this great presentation of yours before I get into it. All right.
Well, you have the floor right now, so I think if you want to give a brief.
All right, that's fine.
This is your time.
I plus some others did a survey of human powered boating in the metro New York, New Jersey area about 6 years ago. We came out to about 150,000 people who actually got into the water by way of canoes and kayaks and whatever, all human powered work, 150,000 in one season. It's always great to see that the water itself is visually enhanced and able to be used, but there are over 27 different boathouses around the metro area. Most of them are free to the public, and there are none on the Lower East Side or the Upper East Side or in the East River. And if you look at any of the plans, you will see that there's no human-powered docking plan for anywhere on the East River, and it's really very, very annoying. And there's no excuse for not being able to allow the public to make direct use of this wonderful amenity that's available to everybody. So that's my quick presentation.
Awesome. So thank you so much for sharing, Louis. Yes, those of you that do not know, big advocate of getting in the water, kayaking, canoeing. So we love to hear more about these boathouses. Anyone else would like anything to say? Again, please just use the hand raising function.
Just one last thing. I'm going to post a link to where you can open up to see the various boathouses. I'll post a link into the chat.
Awesome. Thank you. Yeah, we here in this group are pro boathouse and pro marsh. So I know we'll be looking forward to getting that. Looks like might be one on their hand raised here. All right, Kathy, I'm going to go ahead and unmute yourself. It's your turn.
I just had a question for Louis. Is the reason there's no boathouses in the East River because of the tidal nature of the river? Because I mean, I know that it's pretty treacherous in some areas. I wonder if it's any different than the other side, the west side.
Well, Kathy, I do know I had interest, we had always done a boat dance as part of the Hudson River pageant, and there were some of the boating groups that were interested in trying to do it for the east side, but because you have to stay still in a particular area, the currents where we do the pageant were going to be way too difficult. Whereas when we did it on the west side, it was up by Gansevoort Street, and was where there was the sanitation building at the time, and it was more protected. So we have looked into it, but it's like you could have a kayaks move past, but to actually do choreography on site in a particular location and stay there was going to be very difficult. Like it was explored. So
thank you for providing some insight about that. It is interesting to think that there's no boats on the east side. Anyone else have a question? Now is your time, or a comment, or even say if you're here and you're looking to be involved in the project and you have a certain talent or skill that you're really excited to share, or some niche knowledge that you think this group would benefit from, we'd love to hear it.
Is Mary Ellen there? Does she want to say something?
Yep,
I'm
Mary
here.
Ellen. Yep.
I mean, honestly, Morris is always here to support in whatever way possible. That's the Museum of Reclaimed Urban Space. And I know we do have a physical location, so we're always up for hosting events if people have any ideas for that. But we're down to assist in whatever way.
Great, thanks, Mary Ellen. Last year, we also did the April workshops, and some, of the Morris participants came and participated along with the Henry Street Settlement Group from Boys and Girls Republic and Jacob Reese. Is anyone there from Martha Eddy's group, Global Water Dances?
Yes, hi. So Global Water Dances is to celebrate water preservation, and our next worldwide event is June 10th, 2023. And I have the event registration link that I'm gonna share in the chat, and there's a lot of information there for you for past events to get more information.
Yeah, that would be great. And Martha has always, Global Water Dances, sort of taken on the La Plaza Cultural as with the main featured dance performance for the birth of the climate solutions. And what about Yarani from Loisaida? You want to introduce the organization?
Hi, good afternoon. This panel has been very informative, great. My name is Yarani Del Valle. I'm the Loisaida Center Program Coordinator. And well, the Loisaida Center is in 9th Street between Avenue B and C. And we engage in numerous activities with the community. We're a community-driven center. And every year, we have the Loisaida Festival that takes place in the Memorial Day weekend. And this year, the theme of the festival is going to be sustainability. So my director, Alejandro, said, Yara, you need to be present for today's panel so I can take it all in, offer, of course, our space for anything that is needed for the Ecological City project, and also to have a broader sense of all the resources we have in Loisaida, precisely to transform the festival into something sustainable. Our challenge is going to be mostly our vendors. How do we, make the festival a more ecologically friendly, greener? And it's a challenge because that this public activities generate a lot of trash, and there's a lot of factors. So we are certainly going to be in contact with most of the organizations here, and to see how we can all collaborate into steering, the la conciencia, the conscience of our community and New York City.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, and last year, Loisaida also was engaged and participated in the April, collaborative painting workshops that we did as well. Eileen Zhao from the Chinese American Arts Council, do you want to introduce your organization?
Hi, sure. Hi. Video. Hi, it's really nice to meet everyone. That was a really great presentation. I learned so much about what you guys do throughout the city. With Chinese American Arts Council, we basically have a gallery space where we give the space to Asian American artists from New York and around the world. We have monthly exhibitions, so everyone is welcome to come and visit the gallery. It's located in Soho. It's right next to Pearl River Mart and across from Muji, so it's in that area. Please feel free to drop by. We have monthly exhibition openings. Besides the visual part, we also do performing arts. Our director, who's not here right now, but Alan, he has been performing Chinese opera events, producing events since the 70s. Chinese American Arts Council was actually founded in 1975, and the gallery started in the 80s. So we've been there for a very long time in that exact same space. So if you haven't had a chance to drop by, please come and visit. Our next Chinese opera performance will be at Flushing Town Hall on November 26th. If you're interested, please go and see that show as well. It's free to the public. So after hearing about all these great activities that Earth Celebrations is involved in, we will love to help promote any events or activity that's coming up to our followers. Our gallery space, it's usually full for our shows, but we also have the opportunity to host workshops, even when we have the shows ongoing. So keep that in mind. If you have a small workshop that you would like to do in Soho, we would like to invite you to use our space.
And do you, in your space and with your organization, like, do you have a youth group that you work with there, or with like in Chinatown or anything like that, or it's just sort of a separate thing? Or are you affiliated? Because let's say we have the April workshops. If something took place there, would you be able to tap into, it could be youth, seniors, any ages?
For youth groups, not so much. With our gallery space, we normally work with artists and curators, and depending on what they want to bring in, they can host artist talks, workshops, seminars. We've had our educators come and bring in their students during a show, and they have like a talk about with the artists, talk about what the exhibition is about. So, but we don't really have our own youth group. I think if anything, we cater more to the seniors in that area, because again, Alan, he does regular Chinese opera shows, and before the pandemic, he would invite the top actors of Chinese speaking opera, all different types of opera from China to come. So it would be, a pretty cool thing for the seniors to see a very authentic show in the city.
Okay, great. Well, we'll keep talking and figure out, how we can best collaborate.
Sounds
on
good.
this. Looking forward.
Thank you so much.
And do we have anyone else there who wanted to say anything? Willow, do you want to say anything?
I don't know if you can hear me or not.
Yep.
Okay, I just wanted to say thanks for having me again. I'm not sure what all I could bring to the table this year, but I would say for anyone who's interested in performing or doing arts at this pageant, that when I did it last year, it was a great experience, and I feel like I made a lot of good contacts, and it helped me grow as an artist. So I just wanted to thank you for that. And I'm also always down for like helping out or collaboration in, I do a lot of work with bioarts, and I'm also in environmental science. So I have some background in things like marine science and growing organisms. So if anyone would ever like to reach out, I could put my email in the chat if you have any questions, and I could see if I or one of my colleagues could maybe help in any way.
Yeah, will you be in New York in the spring, or you're not sure?
No, I actually will be in New York during December, the latter part of December and early January. But in the spring, I may be starting an internship. I'm graduating this year, so I'm not entirely sure, and I may be out of state somewhere at that time.
Okay, well, we'll be in touch. Does anybody else want to add anything before?
Can I just answer the one question that came up and then before I got kicked out of the process, which was about the currents?
Yeah.
So if you look from Manhattan across to Brooklyn and Queens, there are 6 boathouses. It's the same currents in Brooklyn and Queens on the East River as they are in Manhattan. And the truth of the matter is that the kayakers have always in the past illegally used the assorted beaches that are available running up along the Manhattan side. But unfortunately, they're going to be prescribed from us. So all this construction work and everything that's being done, I'm just putting it in a pitch to ask your electeds and your community boards to try to put in some information about why there are not available human-powered boat launches along the Hudson River of the, I'm sorry, on the East River on the Manhattan side.
Awesome. Thanks for adding that, Louis. And again, yeah, I see some people are sharing some stuff in the chat. You're welcome to do that as well if you have something to share. But before our meeting kicks all of us out here, there is something that we've liked to do when we gather here in this Zoom space since the pandemic began, and that's to have like a bit of collective movement. So at this point, I'd like to invite everyone to pick up a picture of nature on your phone and just have it ready. Something you love about nature, love about being outside, and have that ready on your phone. Okay, so we'll do a movement first. All right, everyone, let's wave our arms. Ready? And they grew up in a way that we've never seen before. Supernature. All right, everyone. Thank you so much for coming to this meeting and participating. This is a community-based project, of course, so you're the most important part. Thank you for showing up and bringing your listening ears and being willing to participate. We look forward to seeing what this year brings. If you want to learn more about Earth Celebrations, earthcelebrations.com. I'm sure Felicia will put some things in the chat. And others have put things in the chat as well. So please use those resources.
As well as Facebook. You know, I know Facebook isn't as popular anymore, but really that's where we share. The website doesn't get updated as much as Facebook is, where you can really engage on what's happening.
Yeah, awesome. So yeah, stay up to date on our Facebook to hear more. This meeting has been recorded, so it'll be accessible at some point in time. You can talk to Felicia about that, but I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording. And thank you everyone so much for coming. We look forward to continued collaboration.